Okay, we got to talk about this. We need to talk about Ahsoka. Ahsoka has been a really interesting show because let's take it back. The Mandalorian comes out, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and it feels like Star Wars. It feels like taking your space sci-fi story and setting it into a space and turning it into a space western. Very similar to what George Lucas kind of wanted, your space western samurai conglomeration. And the first season of Mandalorian felt so good doing that. And season two went a little different. It focused more on the Jedi, which there was nothing wrong with that. But it kind of left the Western feeling of it and went more into this. Honestly, it went more into this video game feeling of it, where you're just hitting quests. You got to go to this planet, meet this person. You got to go to this planet, do this thing. You got to go to this planet and wait. You got to go to this planet. It felt like a video game, which I enjoyed. Then we got Book of Boba Fett, that I enjoyed watching, but it it felt weird. It didn't feel like a video game very much at all. And it almost didn't really feel like Star Wars. It just felt like we're going to tell you this story. It almost felt, here's what it felt like. It felt like a movie adaptation of a story we've all known, but it doesn't follow the book. That's what it felt like. It felt like watching Percy Jackson and the Olympians movie after having read the book. It's like, we know the story. You're giving us a story that's kind of similar, but it's not what we asked for. That's what Book of Boba Fett felt like. And then we got Andor, and Andor was really good. I think it was a lot of people discussed it as being compared to Mando season 1. I think what Andor really succeeded with was its length. I think with how long Andor was as a show really helped it to where they had, 3 episode arcs. And I think they had like 3 or 4 of them. And I thought that was great. It was really good. Um, they really focused in on the character relationships, character development of them, and it felt like Star Wars. Honestly, it felt like Star Wars without the Force, and that was cool. Then we go to Kenobi, and I think Kenobi's problem, because it had controversy, but I think Kenobi's problem was just poor writing. I think it was poor writing, and I don't mind that they focused upon Obi-Wan and Leia, because A New Hope brings up a question of if old Ben, if Kenobi, is just a hermit on Tatooine, how does Leia know to call him for help? Now, sure, you can say Bail Organa told her how to reach out to old Ben. That works. Um, but I think showing that he had a somewhat of a relationship with her works. And I think doing that earlier on rather than later on makes more sense as well. So I think that that part of the story worked fine. I think that introducing that you can be stabbed with a lightsaber and live was just a really bad idea. I think the stabbing is a bad idea. I think getting an arm cut off, a limb cut off makes sense. I think getting cut makes sense. But I think getting stabbed with a lightsaber doesn't make sense. A lightsaber can melt through, I'm going to say metal, the metal doors in Phantom Menace. And, I mean, we see it in all 3 of the prequels where they cut through And we see it throughout the Clone Wars. So they cut through doors, they cut through walls, they cut through floors. In Ahsoka, it cuts through stone. But you can survive just being stabbed through the gut with a lightsaber? I don't get that. It's hot. It would be boiling your insides. You get cut, your arm gets cut off and it cauterizes your limb. I can accept that understanding. And it's quick. It doesn't give it time to boil, and then you lose a limb and you have to get a prosthetic. Cool. But it being stabbed into you, it's boiling your insides. You should die. I don't get that. And Kenobi introduces. I think Kenobi is the one that introduces that. Like when Kylo Ren gets slashed across the face with a lightsaber. He goes on just fine. I don't want you on the computer. When Finn gets slashed across the back with a lightsaber, he's put into the hospital he's put into medical care for a couple weeks. I don't know the time difference between the two movies. That works. So then we go through Mando Season 3, and again, it felt like a video game. Go here, do this, go there, do that. Each episode was a quest. Some episodes were a side quest. And Mando Season 3 is kind of where I felt it falling apart a little bit. In just that it didn't feel like Mando Season 1 anymore. Which is where I think that they needed a different show to be telling this story and let Mando go and do his thing. Which is, I think, what they're kind of setting up. With Mando and Grogu going back to, I can't remember, but to their home. And kind of setting, owning a farmland or owning their own little house now. Maybe either just, ending their story there or setting up to where they're not a part of what the Mandalorians are doing now. They are doing their own thing. Now we're at Ahsoka, which opens just like Phantom Menace, which I loved. Just like Phantom Menace, Jedi cruiser landing at a starship on a capital ship. And then it's a fight. Cool. Not Jedi. And then we get to Ahsoka and video game. We got to go through this, little quest and grab this item. Cool. And it feels like Clone Wars. It feels like live action Clone Wars, which I love. You could say it feels like live action Rebels, but I don't think we're at Rebels yet. And here's why I don't think we're at feeling like Rebels. Rebels does not feel like Clone Wars. Rebels starts as a very, very childish show. Low stakes. And then very quickly ramps up into, like high stakes, death, Kanan goes blind, Kanan dies, Hera's captured and tortured. It gets dark in Rebels, which was fantastic. I loved it. Clone Wars just kind of stayed at like this adult level, I say adult, teen level show for, almost the whole season. Like it starts kind of childish, but it's still like you're dealing with war, you're dealing with prisoners, you're dealing with conflict resolution, you're dealing with resource management and trying to get resources to the citizens of a planet that are just unlucky enough to be where the battleground is between the CIA, the Separatists, and the Republic at the time, which is like really cool stuff. It's like stuff that probably went way over my head as a kid. And it's been really cool seeing Ahsoka, watching this show. And I'm trying to think. I had one complaint. My one complaint can be forgotten. My one complaint about the 4th episode is that when Hu Yang was fighting the droids, he didn't like bring out 4 lightsabers with his 4 droid arms and like General Grievous fight these droids. I think it would just been really cool. But, here's what I've loved about Ahsoka, the show, and of course the character. We've seen some of the coolest lightsaber fights now in live action. We have not gotten a lot of a Jedi with two lightsaber fights in live action. We saw it a little bit with Anakin in Attack of the Clones. We saw it a little bit with Rey in Rise of Skywalker. And, of course, we've seen it throughout Clone Wars and Rebels and video games. But now we're getting to see it with Ahsoka. And it's not just someone who ends up picking up a second lightsaber, it's someone who's trained and experienced with using two lightsabers. And so it's really cool. I really like it. She has the techniques they're using are really exciting to watch. But then last night she only uses one saber throughout the show. Or at least in parts of the episode. And I love it. Because it feels like it goes back to that samurai story that George Lucas wanted to tell. When Luke would hold his lightsaber, he held it similar to like a samurai stance, with holding it in front of him. When Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon would hold their lightsabers, they would do it similarly as well. Come on. You can come over here. But I think it was so much more obviously done last night with Ahsoka because of the way her lightsaber hilt is. Her lightsaber looks like a samurai sword, and so I think that's really cool, and it really exemplified that samurai feeling of the show. But now for the ending of yesterday's episode. Ahsoka is in the world between worlds after it looks like she was killed by Baylan. Why? Why is she in the world between worlds? The last time that she got into the world between worlds, Ezra pulled her into there, saving her from death. And now she's in there again, being saved from death. So who pulled her in? And she turns around and sees Anakin. But I don't think Anakin looks the way that he's supposed to. I don't think it's Anakin. I think, and I'm going to look it up because I want to use the right name. What is it? Is he just called the Son? The Mortis Son? I think it's the Son. Or also known as the brother. I think it's the Son. And I think that he's appearing as Anakin to make her trust him, or get Ahsoka to trust him. I think he saved her from death. And I think it's possible because where they were was like a really strong focal point in the Force. Now, maybe it is Force Anakin. Maybe it is Force Ghost Anakin. If it is, I am so excited for next week because we're going to get some really cool interactions. I mean, directed by Dave Filoni. How long is next week's episode? Ahsoka, episode 5, length. That can't be right. Episode 5 is only going to be 38 minutes. Well, I guess it won't be as long as what I had thought. But it's still going to be really good. It's still going to be really good. And I love it. I'm loving Star Wars right now, which I usually am at this point in the show. And usually they drop the ball in the last half. But I think Dave Filoni will hold on. I think Dave Filoni will carry us all the way through. I think it's going to be really good. Now, if you stuck around this long, thank you. And I would love to hear, what did you think about Ahsoka as a show so far? What did you think about episode 4? And what are your theories on Anakin? Do you think it's actually Force Ghost Anakin? Do you think it's the Son? Do you think it's something else? What are your thoughts? Go ahead and comment those down below and let me know because I'd love to hear them. As always, y'all have a fantastic day, and may the Force be with you.